Yes, and now we have them, yeah. And in fact, Kovac, very much, his job, although it's in the backstory, you never see it, his job is he goes to that place, among other places, and his job is to do, yes, exactly this, just destabilise. You know, that you go in behind the scenes and you sort of start to pull the plugs out and stop things working. And it was very easy for me to envisage him doing that because obviously I just let him ride on the wave of my own rage. And yeah, that's still basically most of my politics. I mean, even in the fantasy novel, it's a fantasy novel in which there is a sort of, the characters are furious about the various injustices in their world. And obviously, you know, fantasy worlds, they do have this reputation for completely ignoring the fact that pre-modern societies are horrible. You know, and so my idea, it's not just my idea, a lot of other fantasy writers are doing it, was to say, well, no, let's write a pre-modern society with all the unpleasant things that are going on. And again, the channel for my characters was rage. You know, they are all outsiders in one shape or another. They all see the sort of the oppression and the stupidity and the brutalism, and they're very bitterly angry about it. And since they are accomplished warriors, they're able to kill people because they're angry about it. They don't always kill the right people, and you know, because that's the thing. That's the thing about rage. Hollywood loves righteous rage. You know, Hollywood heroes are filled with rage, but they always kill the right people. You know, the consequences of a Hollywood hero's rage are always targeted neatly onto exactly the people who deserve it. And obviously, after a while, you as a writer, you mature, and with that maturity comes the understanding that that kind of rage, although it can be a very useful tool, is always going to have collateral damage. You know, you never are going to get just the people who deserve it. There will always be individuals. So even if you took someone like Saddam Hussein, not Hussein himself, but you know, a monster, okay, and you go, right, well, we're going to blow this guy away because he, I mean, you know, no one deserved to die more than this guy, you know. But he's probably still got small children who see him as their father. He's, you know, there are people for whom he is a different thing, and they aren't going to see it in those terms. You know, for them, their reality is different. So it doesn't matter how righteous you are, and it doesn't matter how careful you are in how you sort of deploy your revenge. There's always going to be fallout. There's always going to be collateral damage. And so very early on, I understood that my characters, because they tend to be men of violence, and because they tend to sort of hack their way through the story with, you know, a succession of violent acts, you have to get early in, make sure it's clear to the reader that the fallout from this is general, and that you may approve of what they're doing in the sense of their main aim, but you can't approve of what the sort of the resulting waves that come with that are. And so, I guess if you were a psychologist or a psychiatrist even, that you would look at me and you'd go, yeah, this is a man working through his own internal rages and sort of trying to place limiters on them to sort of say, oh, you feel like this. Yeah, it's therapy, if you like. And it probably is. I mean, I know that, you know, Ian Fleming apparently was told to write fiction by a therapist. He was told that he... Yeah, and he's not the only one. I think there are a couple of other writers whose writing came from a need for therapy.
That's recommendation.
Yeah. So, you know, there may be some truth in that. There may be that what I'm actually doing is exorcising my own internal rage. And, you know, human beings, yes, behave stupidly. There's no, you know, as Paul was saying, we behave badly in groups. And so it's easy to find targets for that rage. You know, and I find it endlessly fascinating. I keep coming back to it. And what I think, you know, because the problem with politics is you can always find some justification. You know, there's always a way to look at, take the Iraq War, which is one of the most stupid wars of you know, recent history. No one wanted that war, you know, apart from this small group of men in Washington who had decided it was going to take place for reasons, mostly because I think they were stupid men. I think they didn't get what they didn't understand what they were doing. I think they genuinely believed that you could march into a country, kill its head of state, remove a few nasty people, and then just stand back and watch it blossom into a modern democratic society. I don't think they grasped that.
And then repeat the same recipe applied again and again?
Yes, exactly. I mean, there was a failure.
It didn't work.
I mean, I remember reading somewhere that they said that Bush, when he was talking about this, he constantly went on about the Second World War and the liberation of France. And that he clearly saw himself as a sort of analog of was it MacArthur? No, it wasn't MacArthur. Eisenhower. He saw himself as an Eisenhower figure. We're going to go into this country and we're going to liberate them, you know, and then freedom will blossom. And there's some complete faith. You say, yes, but it's not France.
Iraq is not.
Occupied.
Christianism is not Muslim.
Yes, it's a different.
Mohammedanism.
But that was the point. I think it was a group of stupid and blinkered men. I mean, men who didn't have the horizons. You know, again, go back through America's history, recent history. The Vietnam War, another case in point, where they always say, if only Kennedy had read Our Man in Havana, you know, history would have been different. Because the point was that Green understood what was going on in Vietnam. You know, he was a journalist, he was a writer, he had a fantastic sort of intuition for the human soul.
He wrote The Quiet American, which is essentially...
Sorry, that's what I meant. Sorry, not Our Man in Havana, Quiet American, sorry, yeah. And the point is, the Quiet American just deconstructs the mess of post-colonial Vietnam. And it shows you, no, you can't do this. This will not work. And again, these were men who, you know, Kennedy wasn't a stupid man, and nor was he in any way, you know, ignorant, because he travelled, he'd been involved in the war, and he was to that extent he was quite a sophisticated man. But he had this kind of limiter on that he was a white American male, and though it was a group of people who really didn't understand how most of the world worked, because they'd never had to think about it. And again, they fought this insane war, essentially because they didn't grasp what it was they were really doing.
Well, Kennedy was a war hero, of course.
Well, as well, that didn't hurt. But I do think that those guys just didn't understand, you know, and that I think was the case with the Bush war as well. I think they made this decision, this is what we're going to do, and they just hadn't grasped how much fallout there would be from it. And then it's groupthink, because then what happens is you go to your specialists. It's funny, I had a fan who was a CIA analyst, and she...
Okay, they fought the war, but they didn't knew exactly where to retreat and how to teach them. And it's much more difficult, because you see, there is a country that it's living all around with menace against it and succeed to resist. And they can take info from that country, how to deal with the guys all around them, and to find out that there is no chance to deal with them. So, I don't know, when they involved in Iraq, they didn't thought about the intelligence from Israel. And
well, they didn't. The thing is, like I said, I had a fan who claimed to be. I don't know if she actually was, but I think she probably was. She was a CIA analyst, not a particularly high-ranking one, but a low-ranking analyst who wrote reports on these things. And she told me quite candidly. She said, the CIA did not want to go to war in Iraq. The CIA was advising the American government, look guys, this is a quagmire, you will get bogged down, it's not going to work. And basically what happened was that the people who were making policy, you know, the high-ranking members of the government, anything that said no, they just ignored. And anything that said yes, they went, oh, well, look at this report that says it's a good idea. And so over time, what happened was the analysts basically just stopped giving them the data they didn't like. And the reports were actually increasingly redacted to only present the facts that would be found acceptable. And this is a known process in consultancy. You talk to anyone who works in consultancy and they will tell you that when the client asks for a report, they want a report to justify the action that they have already decided they're going to take. If you write a report that tells them that what they want to do is probably not a good idea, you won't be consulting for them for very long. You know?
But you still argue that the benefit of doubt regarding very good intentions about...
I don't doubt that Bush had good intentions in the sense that I think he genuinely thought he was striking a blow for freedom and democracy, but he didn't understand what those things actually were. You know, he was like a lot of
maybe
Americans.
different perspective, different definition of them.
didn't understand the fact that different cultures think different ways.
Yeah.
How does that remark on consultancy rhyme with the attitudes of high-ranking executives in market forces, for instance?
Oh, well, no, market forces, they were just bad guys. No, I was a lot younger when I wrote that book. And anyway, it's a satire. I look back on it now and I can, because it's the, you know, of all the books I've ever written, it's the only one that still hasn't burnt out its publisher's advance in America.
Really?
I'm still not getting any royalties in the US. And it was, what, 10 years ago now? Looking back, it's a very blunt instrument. I mean, you know, although the characters are quite sympathetic and there aren't really good guys or bad guys in the sense that they're all a bit morally grey, still, there is, I had a society in which this kind of business over culture is utterly evil. You know, they don't, all they care about is money, nothing else matters. And yeah, if I were writing a more realist novel, I would have attempted to sort of have people in the hierarchy who think they're doing the right thing, who, you know, see it as beneficial, or, because obviously it's not that black and white. But it was one of my rage days, you know, and the target was, you know, corporate capitalism, you know, so that I just wanted to take them down.
But when you look at what they actually do, it's far worse than anybody imagined. You know, I'm talking about the banking system. Enron, if you remember, I don't know, remember of Enron, which bought up the California power system simply so it could run it into the ground and make more money by importing electricity from elsewhere and then surcharging consumers, which meant everybody had unnecessary power cuts and hospitals went black and terrible things like that. So people, you know, elsewhere in Texas it happens, could make a good profit. And they, you know, again, it's exactly the same kind of mindset it's going up against as Saddam Hussein was, that they didn't think we're doing this to people, they just thought we're doing this to a process. That's what we're doing.
Yes, there was.
Or they turned it into a joke and they dehumanized the consumers by making them as a joke, but you know, the subject of very bad, crude, horrible jokes. So, I mean, one of the problems of science fiction actually is that the present is so weird and horrible and bizarre that it's difficult to make stuff up that's more weird and horrible and bizarre. So you look for little bits of the present that people haven't discovered yet. Unfortunately, that's getting harder with Twitter.
Yes.
But on the other hand, it's getting easy for us. Twitter, do you think Twitter is a great research tool? We could have whole seminars discuss Facebook versus Twitter.
I will say I started
yeah.
tweeting under duress. I didn't want to do it, and
That's why I'm asking, because I know that.
I didn't want to do it. My webmaster, I had my website redesigned, and I had a big revamp. This was when I emerged from my early fatherhood thing, where